Coming up, a drug bust in Clay County when investigators say they found in cars after pulling over drivers on I-94. Investigators are releasing the cause of a drone crash near the Air Force Base in Grand Forks. And new information tonight in the case of a resigning North Dakota state senator following text messages exchanged with a man jailed on child porn charges. Hello and welcome to the Nightly Review. I'm Tom Tucker. We begin with a look at tonight's headlines, then a closer look with new information tonight on how state officials in North Dakota are looking for the owners of unclaimed property and funds totaling more than $100 million. And in tonight's one-on-one conversation, the latest on the controversial corn processing plant proposed for the city of Grand Forks, including how the FBI is now getting involved in the project. But first, there is new information tonight on a drug bust in Clay County. A pair of traffic stops on I-94 has resulted in the recovery of nearly 1,100 suspected fentanyl pills and 20 grams of methamphetamine. The street value of the drugs is roughly $37,000. 3 suspects involved are now facing felony drug charges. Moorhead police officers and sheriff's deputies work together in the investigation. We're told the suspects traveled to Minneapolis to pick up the drugs. One person has died in a fire at a South Fargo apartment complex. Fire crews responded to the blaze in the Park Place apartments off 32nd Avenue South around 6:30 Tuesday night. Crews arrived to find one unit on fire on the second level. Residents in the building were evacuated and crews put out the fire in about 10 minutes. One person was found dead inside the unit. No one else was injured, and there's no word yet on a cause. A Grand Forks police officer was involved in a crash last night while responding to a burglary call. A ride-along participant was also in the police cruiser at the time. The police car collided with another car near the intersection of Gateway Drive and Columbia Road. A total of 4 people, including the police officer, were taken to an area hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries. A cause for the crash and potential charges are still under investigation. Investigators are releasing the cause of a drone crash near Grand Forks Air Force Base. Officials say pilot and instructor error led to the crash of the $64 million Global Hawk drone in a field about 7 miles from the base. It happened in August of 2021. The report released Friday by Air Combat Command says 3 pilots, including an instructor pilot, made a series of errors when giving commands to the drone. The water level at the Red River at the greater Grand Forks area has not yet risen to an earlier estimate. The water level today sat at 45.6 feet and is expected to decline slightly by the end of the day. Yesterday, the National Weather Service lowered the expected crest level to 46 feet, which is considered a major flood stage. Originally, the Weather Service projected the river to crest at 48.5 feet within the week. Well, after starting small in Harvey, North Dakota, an entrepreneurial family is setting their sights on building a global mattress retailer.
And we are happy and excited to announce now the mattress company headquarters will be in Fargo. We thought that was the most logical and appropriate step because our business model concept is to franchise this now.
Rod Marchand is president and CEO of the Marchand Retail Group. His parents began the business in 1980, and he and his twin sons have just opened a new retail location in Fargo, and they're setting up their corporate headquarters in the city. Their mattress company is called Accord Custom Sleep Systems. They manufacture their own mattresses and now have a subsidiary in India. They're also planning to franchise their retail businesses across the United States. Governor Doug Burgum is surveying some of the damage from last weekend's storm. Burgum met yesterday with local officials, residents, and ranchers in Divide County to talk about the state response to widespread power outages. The meeting happened in the Divide County Courthouse next to a conference room that is being used as a temporary emergency shelter for residents still without power. Utility officials say it could be 2 weeks or more before power is restored to all areas. Republican Party leaders in North Dakota are not calling for the release of controversial text messages allegedly sent by State Senator Ray Holmberg. Holmberg is facing allegations that he sexually assaulted a man in 2010. He's also accused of exchanging text messages with Nicholas DeRozier, who's jailed on child porn charges and is facing several federal charges of child sex abuse. Democrats want the messages Holmberg exchanged with DeRozier released. Holmberg announced his resignation on Monday. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is appealing his conviction for the murder of George Floyd. His attorney is arguing pre-trial publicity and the threat of further rioting made Chauvin's trial unfair. Chauvin's attorney also says numerous jurors feared for their own safety and said jurors weren't sequestered when unrest followed the death of Daunte Wright during the last week of the trial. Chauvin was convicted last April of murder and manslaughter in Floyd's death. And Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is suing 4 solar panel sales companies that he says used fraudulent practices. Ellison's office announced the suit yesterday against the Utah-based companies, lenders, and company executives. Ellison says the practices cost affected homeowners anywhere from $20,000 to more than $55,000. In a closer look tonight, you might want to check to see if you have unclaimed property in the state of North Dakota. If you do, state officials want you to claim it. We're told the state currently has more than $100 million in unclaimed property. The state's land commissioner is giving the heads up.
The best way that someone can look for that property is to go to our website, unclaimedproperty.nd.gov, and it's got a lot of good information about the program, about unclaimed property. You can do a search by your first and last name or a family member's first and last name. If something pops up, it'll give you a dollar range.
Joe Heringer tells WDAY's Bonnie and Friends if the system shows you have unclaimed property, it won't give you the exact dollar amount initially, but he says you'll be contacted again by a state representative to get more information before you eventually receive your property. Now, for funds or property that remain unclaimed, Heringer says it's put to good use.
Interestingly enough, that also helps benefit K-12 education in North Dakota because the funds we hold in unclaimed property, the interest from those funds actually goes to that same trust fund to benefit education. Kind of all ties together. It's really interesting.
We're told the amount of property returned to owners in North Dakota is growing as awareness about it spreads because of the education efforts by the Department of Trust Lands. The department returned nearly $13 million over the past 2 years. That's up from $7 million the previous cycle. Again, to see if you have unclaimed property with the state, check the site unclaimedproperty.nd.gov. Well, if you enjoy watching the Nightly Review with Tom Tucker to get all the news you need to know for the FM area and beyond, be sure to use the buttons below to subscribe and to ring the bell. That way you won't miss the next episode. Well, weather-wise, there was quite a bit to like about today, but will the sunshine continue? Meteorologist Dean Wysocki is standing by in the Skywatch Weather Center to tell us more.
Thanks, Tom. Hopefully you got out to enjoy the sunshine today. We're going to see increasing clouds overnight tonight. Lows in the mid-30s with an east-southeast wind of 10 to 20. And then cloudy skies for Thursday. Some light showers developing with highs in the mid to upper 40s. And then a more widespread rain enters the valley for Friday and Saturday. Still cool with highs both days only around 50. And then breezy and will dry things out a little bit for Sunday, but unseasonably cool with highs only into the lower 40s. The cool weather continues with not much end in sight.
It could happen to you or someone you love. One moment, one diagnosis can change everything. Thankfully, there's a program that helps caring people uplift families through a crisis. Lend a Hand Up, raising financial help and hope through community benefits and online campaigns. A program that boosts generosity so gifts go further. Lend a Hand Up helps you help your neighbors. Learn more and give at lendahandup.org.
Welcome back to the Nightly Review. In tonight's one-on-one conversation, the topic is the latest on the FuFeng Group's controversial corn processing plant proposed for Grand Forks. This afternoon, city officials had closed-door talks with FBI officials to talk about the project. The mayor and council are so far giving the project a green light, while pointing to anticipated tax revenues for the city and new jobs. But others are raising concerns over FuFeng's alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party. I first asked City Administrator Todd Feland for an update on the project.
We do currently have an approved development agreement with FuFeng, and that development agreement spells out all the various things that we need to do from an environmental, engineering, permitting, planning and zoning, economic development perspective. So it spells out all the various things that we need to get accomplished here over the next several months for us to continue with the project. And so, now that the petition process is passed, we are back into all those various due diligence items regarding with the development agreement. And, there were 20 plus things that we need to get kind of over various hurdles. And we're working through all those, whether it's water or roads or, odor, planning and zoning. There's various things that we need to get accomplished so that we can go back to the city council under this development agreement, say that, we feel like we've passed all the tests on all these various due diligence items, and we can continue to improve, move forward with the project. So that's where we're at. I would say it's going to take us probably at least through this fall to get through a lot of those due diligence items, and some of those items will go into next year at this point in time. And
one analyst I've spoken with asserts the FBI can't provide an authoritative review of the national security issues associated with a project like this, because the agency is limited only to counterintelligence or illegal activity in the civilian domain. Thoughts on that?
That's good to know. That makes sense to me. Obviously, their role is, national security within the domestic United States. Obviously, we have other agencies that are looking more internationally. So I think we'll find out more what their role is, and on when we get a briefing from this week, and what they can and cannot do, what they can and cannot say to us. So we'll have a better sense from their briefing, and maybe what roads we want to go down further, and what roads we're able to continue to work with our FBI.
My understanding is that under the FIRMA Act, that a project such as this is required by law to be reviewed by CFIUS. That's the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States.
I think our plan is to have it reviewed by third parties that, review these or do the investigations themselves to see this particular project doesn't meet the criteria, and get some further intel before we move further on that. But we do intend to move, delve a little bit deeper into that particular regulation.
So how is it that the city has concluded, at least so far, that the FuFeng project does not need to be reviewed by CFIUS?
Preliminarily, our city attorney's office reviewed the regulation and appeared that it did not apply to Grand Forks in this particular project. We also did reach out to FuFeng Group themselves too. We did have a conversation with their attorney, and their attorneys have come to the conclusion that it did not apply to them also. But I think just to provide a more robust opinion than that, we are looking to reach out to a firm that does this on an ongoing basis to get another opinion regarding if it applies, and if it doesn't apply, is there something above and beyond that we can go to further review it? I think is where we're committed to.
I'd like to thank Grand Forks City Administrator Todd Feland for joining me for tonight's one-on-one conversation. Feland says there are several other steps the city still must complete in their due diligence process, and he expects that work to continue through the fall. I'll follow up with Feland and the City Council to learn more about their meeting this afternoon with the FBI. Well, that will do it for this Wednesday night, April 27th, 2022. I'm Tom Tucker. Thanks for watching the Nightly Review.